Hello, and welcome to the Why We See Movies podcast. I'm your host, Ron.Toni. Joining me today, as always, we've got Darren.
I'm here.
And Paul.
Yo.
Today we're going to be talking about James Gray's new film, The Lost City of Z. Later on we'll do our Rant and Rave segment. But first, let's see what's going on inside the entertainment world with...
You, on the mark!
Paul, welcome back.
Thanks.
How
Been
was
a bit.
How was your trip?
Fantastic.
Get a lot of sun?
It was nice to experience summer for a week.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a while.
Yes, we have yet to see any sign of that in our fair city.
Yeah, it's the winter that just doesn't get the hint that it's not welcome anymore.
That's for sure. Mm-hmm. So we had a bit of news since you were gone. What do you think of the Joss Whedon Batgirl film coming out?
Love the idea. He's always been a strong director and writer of female lead roles. I mean, obviously everybody knows Buffy the Vampire Slayer and whatnot. And he's had stints in comics as well, so it's not like he's unfamiliar with the territory and genre. So, well, and obviously dealing with Full Avengers, which he made a great impact with that. No, I love it. I can't wait to see it. I think this is a win for DC.
Me too.
Yeah.
He's, I guess recently just said when it comes to casting, it's going to be an open call. And stars don't matter, he said. Finding the right person.
It's good to hear.
And he's a good enough movie maker that he can make a star out of anybody, I believe. As soon as I heard that, I was instantly excited for it.
It seems like a perfect fit.
Totally agree.
Other news you missed was the new Thor trailer.
Yes.
Did you get a chance to see it?
Sure did. Reminded me a lot of kind of Thor meets Guardians of the Galaxy a little bit with the music choice, the colors, and kind of the flamboyancy of it.
You can kind of tell maybe their cosmic angle now. Guardians did so well, so let's make all of our space movies look like this.
Right, which isn't a bad thing as long as they don't overdo it. I've got no problem with it. I mean, I love that song and seeing the action set piece to it and whatnot. It got me excited for it. It was so good, I had to hit replay. So, yeah,
the director
I really
said this film was going to be metal, and he's got the Led Zeppelin to prove it.
Yeah, sure does. No, I really enjoyed that trailer a lot.
Excellent. Big news today. Have you heard that M. Night Shyamalan has announced the Unbreakable sequel is coming?
Really?
He has finished the script. He wants it released by January 18th, 2019. It's going to be called Glass, which is, of course, the character that Samuel L. Jackson played. Yeah. And have you guys seen the movie Split?
Not yet.
Not yet, and I've been trying to avoid anything about it. I've heard great things about it, which is really good because M. Night Shyamalan's been on a bit of a downward spiral. Mm-hmm. So it'd be good to see.
Well, he was. Lately, he's been on an upward spiral.
Yeah, Split and The Visit.
The Visit, I've
had pretty strong reviews. Yeah. Well, compared to the previous few films for him anyways.
Right.
They got strong reviews.
Yeah, I guess the Split movie is going to take place in the same universe as this Unbreakable sequel, and James McAvoy will be in the new movie.
Really?
So it's going to have Bruce Willis, Samuel Jackson, James McAvoy, and
that's exciting.
I guess he said there's moments in Split where it hints that it takes place in the same universe as Unbreakable. I've been waiting a long time for this movie. I love Unbreakable. I think it's my favorite Shyamalan film.
It's up there for me. The only thing I didn't like about it was literally the last couple seconds of it where it just comes up with text at the end. And I understand it's supposed to be like a comic book, etc.
You got to remember, when it came out, there wasn't a lot of comic movies around.
Right.
So it was kind of doing something even new. I always thought it was one of the best comic book movies, even though it wasn't based on a comic book.
Right. It wasn't enough to ruin the movie for me. I loved it. I thought it was fantastic.
Yeah, let's hope.
It wasn't as effective an ending as Shyamalan hoped, I think, is the point. But the bulk of the movie is amongst his best work, for sure.
Yeah. Right, and it was really setting up for a sequel, I thought. I was expecting this movie a long time ago. I thought maybe it might have been his follow-up movie after Signs or The Village or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But there was rumor and speculation that he might come to a point where the only way he could do another movie is if he made a sequel to Unbreakable. It's good to hear that it's not out of desperation and that he's actually got a couple good movies under his belt again.
Yeah, this could be his first real giant hit in a while.
I'd see it.
Yeah, I can't wait for it. It's automatically one of my anticipated movies.
He's a very talented writer-director, and he hasn't been flexing his muscles the way he should have for about 10 years or more. Yeah, let's see this.
Okay, in other comic book news, Marvel has found not one, but two directors for Captain Marvel. They are Ryan Fleck and Anna Boden. They previously helmed two terrific lower-budgeted films, Half Nelson with Ryan Gosling and the baseball movie Sugar. Once again, Kevin Feige is stepping outside the usual sandbox to look for directors. I hope it's a good choice. It's a very odd choice.
Marvel's done really well in kind of finding these indie directors and putting them in the driver's seat. And it's kind of funny how opposite of an approach that is to what DC's doing with the news of Joss Whedon and then all the rumors about
Mel Gibson.
Thank you. Like, all the rumors of Mel Gibson being linked to Suicide Squad 2, like it seems like they're going for the big splash, whereas Marvel's more focused on something different.
No matter what is happening in Marvel, Kevin Feige is always going to be the man in control of these things, much like Kathleen Kennedy with the Star Wars universe too. I don't know if the DC universe really has that. And you wouldn't bring in someone like Mel Gibson and tell him what to do. You know, you'd only bring in someone like him and kind of let him do his thing.
Maybe that means the Wonder Woman rumors are true because that's an indie director on that one and seemed like maybe a good idea, but without a good guiding direction from DC or Warner Brothers. And yeah, maybe they need someone like Mel.
A strong guiding hand to kind of set things right. Yep, I agree.
I really like their last films. I don't know if you've seen Half Nelson or Sugar, but...
Yeah, those are both... these are co-directors of those films?
Right.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, those are both strong films. It sounds like a good fit.
I think so, too. Yeah, I'm just amazed. It's never who you think it's going to be. That's for sure.
No, yeah.
But that's okay. I like that they're willing to give people a chance, and it makes their career, to some degree, opens up doors for them, too. And it's worked so far.
Yeah, I think they're starting production on that really soon. Captain Marvel's coming out 2019, right? I think it's the second last movie for the Avengers sequel.
Right.
So high hopes for that movie.
Absolutely.
Okay, any news involving a potential Martin Scorsese film always intrigues me, and this one sounds very promising. The project is based on a novel from the author of, funny enough, The Lost City of Z, David Gran. It is called Killers of the Flower Moon. It tells the true story, that I've never heard, of events in Oklahoma in the 1920s when oil was found on the Osage Indian Nation, making the tribal leaders per capita the richest men in the world. Over the course of a few years, the Osage began to be killed under mysterious circumstances, with 24 deaths in total, leading J. Edgar Hoover to have the FBI investigate the alleged conspiracy. I've never heard this story.
That sounds like a hell of a story.
Wow, that's pretty amazing.
That's very interesting.
So I would assume DiCaprio and DeNiro would be playing the lawmen. Unless DeNiro was playing Hoover. No, they would be too young. He's the wrong
in the 1920s, yeah.
Right.
You know, maybe that's DiCaprio's chance to play Hoover.
Again?
Oh, that's right.
I don't even know if Hoover will be much of a character in it, but anyways, that's the storyline.
Very interesting.
Yeah, isn't it though? Yeah. Like I immediately want to pick up this novel. Yeah, I hope this movie gets made. I know Marty's got a few movies in development right now, including that Irishman movie we talked about earlier, and there's another one he was thinking about doing with DiCaprio about one of the world's first infamous serial killers. Have you heard about that?
No.
He was killing people, I think, around a World's Fair, maybe St. Louis or something, and he killed hundreds of people with this kind of mad, elaborate death house he had set up.
Oh, I know the historical story of that. Yeah, that's insane.
Yeah.
Wow.
This might be third on their list of movies to do, but let's hope they get around to them.
He's good at finding interesting subject matter, that's for sure.
Absolutely. Like, these all sound great. Anything that Scorsese is circling is always news to me.
He could make the phone book and I'd go watch it, so.
You got it. Okay, and lastly, another week and another sad announcement. Oscar-winning director of Silence of the Lambs, Jonathan Demme, died today at the age of 73 of cancer. He began making movies with Roger Corman, movies like Caged Heat, which I'm a fan of, and of course later films like Melvin and Howard, Something Wild, Married to the Mob, and Philadelphia. He was a great director.
I'm glad you mentioned Melvin and Howard. Man, that's an underrated movie that
really good.
I'd like more people to check out.
He hadn't worked much. He had a big flop with an Oprah Winfrey film called Beloved.
Right.
About slavery, which is an amazing movie. It's a very difficult film, but I think it's fantastic. And I think it kind of broke him a little, how ill-received it was.
Remember,
even critically.
It had a lot of strong reviews, but it also had a lot of awful reviews. Yeah. And people were very divided.
I hope people give it another chance. Yeah. It's a tough film to watch, but I mean, it's one of the best movies about the subject of slavery I've ever seen. Then he did a real stinker called The Truth About Charlie with Mark Wahlberg.
I remember the title.
And tried to remake The Manchurian Candidate, which wasn't a bad movie.
It was okay.
Yeah.
But it's no original.
Right. It's not going to hold up to that. And then he'd also been making musical documentaries lately. Ones with Bruce Springsteen and Neil Young. Yeah, there's a movie that he did called Swing Shift. Have you heard of that one with Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russell?
Yeah, I remember that. I never saw it.
It was about how women had to go into the factories during World War II.
Right.
Men were off to war. And he had supposedly had a terrific cut of the film, and that movie was taken away from him. The studio film that came out isn't a great one, but I've heard that there's a buried director's cut out there, which will probably now never see the light of day, which is too bad. Silence of the Lambs is only one of 3 films in history to win all 5 of the big awards, right, at the Oscars. Picture, director, actor, actress, and screenplay. Yeah, Silence of the Lambs will always be the one he's best known for, and that movie still holds up today.
Yeah, I love that movie.
It's very good.
Yeah, fantastic.
His brother died fairly young.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I didn't know who his brother was.
Sorry, my mistake, Ron. Not his brother, his nephew, Ted Demme.
Is that? I had no idea they were related.
Yeah, I thought they were brothers.
Holy shit, I didn't know that. That's funny. I just thought they shared the same name because they looked nothing or acted anything alike.
Yeah, Ted Demme, 1963 to 2002.
Yeah, he died really young.
38.
He died on a basketball court.
Director of Blow, Life, Beautiful Girls.
Beautiful Girls.
The Ref.
Monument Ave.
He's no Jonathan Demme, but...
He didn't really have a chance to be either.
No.
Ted Demme was a fine director.
As was his uncle, apparently. Yes, Jonathan Demme, you will be missed.
Hopefully we can have one show without a sad, tragic announcement.
Yeah, for
Not
sure.
this week. Okay. Shall we get to our feature review?
Let's do it.
There's a major exploration afoot.
Terrible disease, murderous savages. The journey may well mean your life.
If we may find a city where one was considered impossible to exist, it may well write a whole new chapter in human history.
Going upriver, are you? Ain't nobody comes back from up there.
Your soul will never be quiet until you find this place.
We must turn back. There is no turning back.
It is your destiny.
Okay, the film is written and directed by James Gray. It stars Charlie Hunnam, Robert Pattinson, and Sienna Miller. The IMDb listing, a true-life drama centering on British explorer Percy Fawcett, who spent 2 decades in search of a mystical lost city hidden in the Amazon.
Unfortunately, Paul didn't get a chance to see it, so he's going to be stepping away for a little while. Darren, what did you think of The Lost City of Zed?
I really like this movie. It was a great theatrical experience. It was tough for us to get to see, as of course we mentioned. We had to drive across the city to the one and only screen in this city of 1.3 million people that had it.
We had to become almost like explorers ourselves.
Almost, you might say that.
Mm-hmm.
I watched this the same weekend that I finally caught up with Silence. And I was really struck by both of them being so much about a man dedicated to his obsession. If you want to call it an obsession, it's maybe not an obsession in the case of Silence, but he's dedicated to what he believes in. He's very focused, and both characters in both films, very focused, very determined, and they're going to set out and do what they want to do, be damned what the obstacles are.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, just a terrific story. I love this movie too. I thought it was great. I love movies like this. I'm
a sucker for
anything involving explorers.
Yeah,
or
1492, Aguirre, The Wrath of God.
Oh yeah,
I should be thinking one or two others.
There's a few. It reminded me of our movies like Mountains of the Moon. Bob Rafelson movie about the search for the Nile, source of the Nile. There's a movie called Black Robe.
Right, I've never seen Black Robe either.
They all have this great authenticity.
I always tell my wife that if I lived 300 or 400 years ago, I'd be an explorer. I mean, I have that explorer's drive and passion in me, and I want to go out and search out and find things and see what's out there. And I really find stories like this so appealing. The New World also.
Right, that's another really good one.
We mentioned that in a recent show.
Sure. Yeah, that one's great too. I'll tell you, the first thing struck me from this movie right off the bat is Charlie Hunnam's performance.
He's very good.
I've seen this guy in a few movies before, some of Guillermo del Toro's films and stuff, and he never really jumped off the screen to me. He always seemed competent. This is a star-making performance.
Oh, yeah.
He is fantastic in it.
I'm glad they didn't go with a typical star for this film and went with him, because he holds the movie together.
Sure.
He is wonderful.
After this, I'd want to put him in everything. It's that kind of performance. When I see him in the lead, I'm like,
he's truly
put
great
this guy in all of it. Like after Russell Crowe burst on the screen, I want to see this guy in every movie.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's so good in it. And the rest of the cast, fine supporting cast.
I forgot that Robert Pattinson was in it until his name popped up in the credits.
He disappeared in it.
Disappears. I mean, he has a giant beard to disappear underneath, but he really inhabits that role.
Right. Very smart move taking a role like this for him, I think.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And I had no idea Tom Holland was in the movie.
I remember I saw him on the Rotten Tomatoes listing, and I knew he was in it, and I kept thinking, well, when's he showing up? Like they've explored twice now, but then he's so young that he plays appropriately Fawcett's son.
So convincingly. I mean, within a matter of scenes, he ages about 6 years. When you first see Tom Holland, you swear to God couldn't be more than 13 years old.
Yeah.
And just a few scenes later, he's playing a mature man, maybe about 20.
Yeah.
And it's just like, wow, this kid is really good on just a handful of scenes to pull that off.
Franco Nero is who I didn't realize was in it. And then I didn't even recognize it was him until the end credits and featuring Franco Nero. And I thought, oh, wow, that was Franco Nero.
He's got those
the eyes,
laser eyes, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it.
Yeah, he was terrific. And Ian McDermott is fantastic.
I love him. He's so underutilized. I love him. He's such a good actor.
You would think Star Wars would have been more of a jumping off point for more work, but
yeah,
I haven't seen him in much of anything since those movies.
No, I mean, this and Tim Burton's Sleepy Hollow are the main projects I can think of that he's been in outside of Star Wars. I think he just loves the stage and like working on the British stage.
Maybe, but boy, is he good in it.
Yeah,
it took me about half the movie to figure out who he was.
The very end of his first scene, I was right, the voice hit me. Of course, the goddamn Emperor. How did I not realize it?
Yeah, he's so terrific in it. All right, and Angus McFadden is in it too, and he's really good in it. It's James Murray, who must be a real-life character as well.
Yeah, I can't remember. I mean, when I've read about the historical incidents that these are based on, it was more just about the explorations and, Pierce being in charge, Mr. Fawcett being in charge. So
right, but he's referenced as a member of Shackleton's team.
Yeah, exactly. So he's clearly a real figure, but I don't recall having read about him myself, the history of it. But
sort of a tragic figure in this for sure.
Yeah. Tragic and a hero and a bastard at the same time.
Kind of, yeah. Yeah, a maddening character, but
yeah, for sure.
Boy, he's really good in this.
He added a lot to the film. It was a good character.
Yeah, one thing we could maybe talk about is the character of Nina, his wife.
Mm-hmm.
She's a little bit proto-feminist for the movie. I know this is the era of suffragettes, too, and everything, but...
the movie wants to be smart about handling the female character, not just have her be a damsel at home waiting for the husband.
Right, we've seen that character so many times about the woman who's left behind, and normally she's usually a little nastier, too. It's always a little, how can you do this to us? And
yeah,
she's kind of a bit of the opposite. She's much more supportive of what he's doing, and
very
really understands what he's doing, but also understands the damage that it's done to their family as well.
Yeah, and doesn't see why she shouldn't be able to go along as well.
Exactly. That might have been the one moment where I was like, I don't know if any credible woman at that time could even conceive of such an idea at the time.
No, but it fits within our modern mentality of what a wife would be, I guess. And, and it doesn't ruin or hamper the movie in any way, of course. So, and what actress would want to play just the boring, stay-at-home, not complaining wife? It gives a lot more for Sienna Miller to do.
Yeah, she's got more depth than, I guess, the Left Behind wives' past tales. And Paul's still here. Did you have any questions on the film?
Nope. You pretty much just made me want to see it more than I already wanted to. So hopefully I can catch it before it leaves the theaters.
Yeah, hopefully.
It'll look great on a nice HD TV, but man, does it look good on the big screen.
This is the kind of movie that I think would warrant, like you guys have
big screens are made for this, yeah.
Right. Like something like this doesn't have to be special effects, but cinematography, like that. I want to see that where you're enveloped in it and you feel like you're in that world.
The sound design was incredible. Just there are moments of silence in this movie that were deafening. Surround sound in the jungle. There's shots in the jungle where just all the speakers in the cinema are just, you hear birds and insects and the wind, and just the sound design is incredible in this movie. And the cinematography was so beautiful, both interiors and exteriors. It really deserves to be seen on the big screen.
Absolutely. I'll just interrupt you with that. It's the cinematographer is Darius Honji. He did Seven.
Yeah.
And also a lot of Woody Allen movies and a few David Lynch movies. He has got a great eye.
He does.
You're right. This movie looks fantastic.
It does. There's shots in the jungle at night where it feels like the dark is so oppressive around them. You can hardly even tell they're in the jungle, and they're just lit by a little bit of campfire. Whereas a typical movie in that scenario, you'd see every detail around them, every tree, say, well, we have this great location, we have to show it off. Same with the interiors. The one movie I always mention is Far From the Madding Crowd, the Julie Christie version, where it takes place in a time before electricity. But man, those British cottages at nighttime sure looked like they were lit by 1,000-watt bulbs instead of candles. This is just gorgeously shot. Great eye this cinematographer has.
I mean, so the costumes look better in this movie than in other movies. The red on his uniform just stood out a little bit more than in other films. It's first class all the way, yeah. We're making you want to see it, though, I bet.
From the trailer, I wanted to see it. I was really disappointed that it was such a limited release, because I still want to see it.
And I still haven't seen the trailer.
Me neither.
I went to this based on the Rotten Tomatoes overall rating, and then the composite, going down reading the reviews, and then just knowing the story. And that was enough for me. And I'm really glad that drew me into the theater to see it.
Yeah,
that's all I needed was Explorers in the Amazon.
I was automatically interested just based on your description of what it was about. I was in because I love adventure movies. Even watching the special features on Kong where they talk about Cooper and he's an adventurer.
On the original King Kong.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah.
Marion C. Cooper. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I ate that up. Like that was engaging.
But that's when filmmakers were much more fascinating than they are today.
For sure. But like, I'm like you, like anything adventure like that, I'm in automatically. I just watched the trailer because I wanted to see if Melanie had any interest in seeing it, and she was interested in seeing it, but unfortunately one theater in this city shows it, and we couldn't make it.
I'm kind of glad you referred to it as an adventure film, because it is. It's like a realistic Raiders of the Lost Ark in a lot of ways.
Right.
It's slow moving, it's not action-packed, but this is what it was like.
But it also never succumbs to spectacle.
Exactly.
There's not one set piece in the whole movie where it's there just to be there. There's hardly very little action in the movie, but you're never bored, and it's very tense and suspenseful, and it's more about not wanting any action to happen.
Because when the action does happen,
someone you care about.
It's not Indiana Jones saving the day. It's, some poor guy is getting a spear through him, chucked from the darkness of the jungle, which I always love when we talk about these movies that we like Aguirre, The Wrath of God, The New World. There's always the obligatory scene where the explorers are beset upon by the natives. Either through the trees or across the riverbank, and there's just spears and arrows coming at them.
There's always the one guy who has the line, "Hey, do you guys see something?"
And that's what fascinates me about exploration. Just how many Europeans, when they came to the New World, experienced that, and just the darkness and the unknown.
Right.
And
you can almost understand the colonial aspect of it because they were doing it for monetary reasons, right?
Right.
They were crossing the ocean to make money because they didn't have a life back home. This guy has a very nice life. He's got a very nice wife and he has children.
Yeah.
And he's still going and doing this crazy thing. And you mentioned him being obsessed before. I wasn't quite sure if I wanted to use that word because he never comes across as obsessed.
Obsessed is strong.
But you'd have to think you'd have to be obsessed to do what he...
Well, exactly.
Right?
I mean, that kind of person that could leave his family, his wife and children for years at a time to go on these expeditions. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad character trait, but it takes a really special kind of person to do that.
Maybe the fact that so much of the world had yet to be discovered and explored gave you that certain kind of allowance to even think like that.
Exactly. Rich men and poor men thought, I can make my fortune out there if I can just find A or find B, whatever that might be. And
right.
I think that's the kind of passion that drove guys like this.
And there is that kind of minor backstory where they mention his somewhat notorious family history.
Yeah.
And that he has something to prove.
Exactly. Maybe. He's in a good position at home, but he's not where he should be. And I think
he doesn't get the respect that he deserves.
Yeah, I think that kind of drives a lot of his passion as well.
This takes place over, about a 20-year time period?
About that,
1903, 04 to about the mid-20s.
I think so.
I guess this could all be considered post-spoiler territory from now on because we're just going to be talking about different moments of the movie.
Yeah, I mean...
There's only really one big spoiler in the movie, and...
The one and only spoiler is the historical
the IMDb listing gave it away, and I reworded it so you wouldn't know that bit.
And it's not like it's a surprise ending. It's the inevitability of the story. So, hey, let's say it right now and see what happens.
He's never to be seen from again.
Yeah, they're just... On their last expedition, they don't come back. And...
In case you didn't hear, he didn't come back and find lost mystical city at sea, and nobody's visiting there as we know.
Or Zed. Every character in the movie says it because they're British and they're using proper British English.
Right, I shouldn't be using the American.
And again, I'm not British, I'm Canadian, so if I want to say Z, I'll damn well say Z.
We'll say it anyway we won't.
That's right.
I'll say it Z.
Why not?
Zed's dead, baby. Zed's dead.
Z flows off the tongue.
So right. I've always said Z.
I'm Scottish, Irish, and German. I don't want to say it the British way, so... What's fascinating, and now that we've cleared the air over the one and only real spoiler in the film, from the real historical event, that there were those people who did at least come back and claim they encountered Fawcett and his son in the jungle living with the Guarani tribes, and the Fawcett's would explain to them what they saw, where they were taken by the Guaranis. And they did say they were taken to this. They described a journey where they were blindfolded and carried across bridges and rivers and deep into the jungle. And they did see not a city made of solid gold like El Dorado, but they found
the remnants.
What they described as, a spectacular metropolis, as far as the Amazon is concerned anyways. To what extent those stories were embellished by the people who came back and said, hey, we met the Fawcetts, or...
Like the story about the compass is probably...
Yeah, that seems pretty cinematic, so I don't know if that's real or not, but the fact of the matter is that there probably is a lot in the deep, dark reaches of the Amazon. Who knows what's there to discover? Every now and again, satellite mapping turns up a pyramid in Central America that's completely overgrown with the jungle. So
there was that postscript at the end of the film too that says that there have been recent archaeological developments.
Exactly, like they found
some evidence of this
roads and so on that are ancient. That who knows what this all led to and what is connected in that jungle. It's a fascinating idea.
Were there any particular moments that you liked?
You know, one of the things that stands out is, I'll call it the piranha scene. It's one of the additional things explorers at that time would have faced. And they would have had no idea what was happening to that poor man underneath the surface of that river. And just seeing the blood and the bubbles and the turmoil. And oh my God, our companion, we can't do anything for him. Just what people faced when they went. And I can't even imagine.
Yeah, I would think I might be one of those people who wants to turn back about halfway.
What are you doing?
I wouldn't want to be the first guy.
Yeah, from the first moment the spears and arrows start flying, I'd say, okay, let's get back to that rubber plantation where the opera house was. And
when even your guide has split, you're like,
exactly.
Let's hightail it.
Actually, that was a striking moment too when they were going through the jungle and came across the opera stage.
That's one scene I want to talk
amazing
about.
Because, and there was been a lot of, most of the score at that point had been classical music. So I thought, okay, we're just hearing more classical music on the soundtrack. But no, they came to the rubber plantation and there was a full opera being staged.
Full on opera with
the
orchestra.
Jungle.
Yeah.
It was quite the striking scene.
The whole idea. We've seen scenes like that too in Fitzcarraldo was all about him. The driving force is he wants to bring opera to the savages.
Right.
And even in Apocalypse Now, that kind of scene in the middle of the jungle, this crazy scene with the Playboy bunnies and all of that. And
French estate in the middle of the jungle in the extended version of Apocalypse Now.
Right. Well, it sounds like we both enjoyed the film quite a bit.
Yeah, strong recommendation for me. The only drawback, I think, is some audiences might find it a little slow, but it's so interesting that it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I wouldn't say it felt like a breeze like 90 minutes, but it felt like maybe 2 hours because it's so engrossing.
And it also has that true life flow to the film where it's almost jarring, the events that happen from one thing to another. Like World War I just happens in the middle of the story, and they have to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
That stops their expedition for a good 6-7 years, right, before they're back on track. Yeah, so the movie, it might be long, but it's never dull and always engaging. Was there anything we didn't like about this movie?
There's not much I didn't like.
Me neither. It doesn't really go in any new places, I'll tell you that. It's nothing.
No, it
doesn't go to the craziness of Aguirre, The Wrath of God, or even Fitzcarraldo, some of her films.
Apocalypse Now, you could also, I guess.
Sure, there's a bit of Apocalypse Now in this movie, too, where I was thinking of that film.
Yeah.
Any boat down a river.
Boat in the jungle, yeah.
Right. So, yeah, I wouldn't put it on the level of those other films, but this is really superior
It's superb. It's great filmmaking. It's I don't know. We're not at the halfway point of the year yet, but we've got a true contender for one of the best movies of the year, I'd say.
If this isn't on my top 10 for the year, it's going to be a pretty good year.
Yeah, exactly. So. That's a good point.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Are you a fan of any of James Gray's other films? Have you seen his other work?
No, I haven't. I don't think I've seen a single one of his.
He hasn't directed many movies. I think he's done
like
about
2 or 3 other features. Oh, that many?
He's done about 6 movies since mid-90s. His first movie was a movie called Little Odessa.
Right, I remember that getting some strong reviews.
Yeah, and then he didn't work again until a movie called The Yards, I think, with Mark Wahlberg.
Right.
And then We Own the Night he did with Mark Wahlberg. And then he did a movie called Two Lovers with Joaquin Phoenix and Gwyneth Paltrow, and his last one was called The Immigrant.
And The Immigrant got
with Jeremy Renner.
Has a lot of good reviews.
Yeah, I saw that one. It was okay. This is my favorite of all of his films for sure. His other films, like we talked about, always have a great sense of period and authenticity and detail to it, but they're kind of cold movies too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not bad films either. They just didn't grab me like this one did. This is fantastic.
This definitely intrigues me to see more of his films because this is such a strong entry. If you can see it in the theater, do so. Otherwise, check it out as soon as it's on Blu-ray or for streaming or download or whatever you do. It's one of the best movies of the year so far for sure.
I couldn't agree more. Okay, shall we move on to the rant and rave section?
Why not? Let's do it.
Let's
rant,
do it.
Rant and or rave.
Paul, since you've been sitting out for a little while, did you want to start?
Well, I can start with the rant that leads into a bit of a rave.
Do that, Paul.
So, as you mentioned, I was away on a holiday, and on the plane got the tablet to watch some movies on the journey to Hawaii. 6-hour flight, want to keep yourself entertained. And they had some interesting entries on the plane, so I thought, okay, well, it's a good opportunity to explore some titles. They had an animated movie on there that I had heard some really good things about, and I thought, yeah, okay, I'm always up for a good animated movie. So I watched Sing, and man, that is just like candy, because it's sweet and has absolutely no staying power and is not satisfying in the least. It's got some catchy songs. It's got some very cardboard cutout characters that you don't really care about.
From what I know, it involves like an American Idol talent like competition involving animals.
Involving animals.
Right.
So it's got a decent voice cast, like Matthew McConaughey plays the stage owner and stage manager. He's a koala bear, and his production house has fallen on tough times, and he's really looking to get that production that's going to make him relevant again and make some money. So he puts on this talent show, and I'll give it credit in that it doesn't just do pop songs. It delves into a few different styles, but it's an instantly forgettable movie.
Is it taking songs that we know and redoing them, or is it all new material?
It's all songs you've heard before, like a lot of radio favorites. It's got some old jazz and Frank Sinatra and that kind of stuff. So at least like I said, it varies the music a little bit, but it's not the most interesting movie.
I caught a bit of it at the in-laws. They put it on for the kids, and the kids seemed to be kind of enraptured, and I'm talking 4 years old and younger.
Yeah.
But what I saw, which was maybe 20, 25 minutes, was kind of awful.
Yeah, it's not a movie I ever need to see again. I mean, if, like you said, if you've got young kids that they're going to be entertained because there's catchy music that they can kind of sing along to or whatnot, that's fine. But if you're an adult looking for an engaging movie that will make any kind of impact on you, this is not the movie you're looking for. But to that end, luckily, I followed that up with a movie called A Monster Calls. And that's got Sigourney Weaver.
I've been dying to see that.
And Felicity Jones. It's all about a young boy. He's in a small town in England, and his mom is sick, and it's kind of how he's dealing with it. Liam Neeson voices the monster, and it was a really engaging movie. I really enjoyed it. It did some interesting things. It's very well acted. It's got a very dark but very heartfelt tone to it. Unfortunately, they came around and collected the tablets when I had 4 minutes left in the movie. So I had to go on the internet and read what the final 4 minutes were, which unfortunately is a pretty significant moment in the movie.
Can't they just circle for another few minutes?
Well, I was thinking of asking, but when the woman ahead of me was trying to make that deal and she still had half an hour left in her movie, I wasn't going to put the flight attendant through that again. So
when you saw the Asian man running up and down with his nose bleeding, you thought maybe it's not a great idea.
No, I really enjoyed it. It, like I said, it very well acted. Even the young boy in it, he's very good, and it deals with a lot of different subject matter. And he's dealing with bullying at his school and the turmoil of his life.
Is it a contemporary film?
Yeah, it's modern day, and his father is American and absent, and you see his father come in for a visit because the mother's sick and whatnot. And like I said, it's a very good drama. I thought it was very well paced and very enjoyable.
If you had to compare it to a movie, it's kind of the tone to it. Is it for kids? Is it for teenagers? Or
definitely not for kids, because it deals with some pretty dark subject matter. I'd say teenagers for sure. Maybe I could see 12, 13 years old and up. And it doesn't play down to the audience at all. It deals with everything pretty reasonably and intellectually. They never, this is just a young boy. They don't really gloss over anything. They really delve into his emotional state. And as I said before, really how he's dealing with the situation. So
sort of sounds familiar to a film from a little while ago called The Bridge to Terabithia.
Yeah. I assume Monster Calls does have a fantasy element to a certain extent.
A little bit, yeah.
Yeah, so that's kind of, a lot like The Bridge to Terabithia, I'd say.
Have you seen that?
No.
Yeah, that's a good movie, too. It's the way you're describing it as this youth dealing with real-world tragedies and escaping them with his own fantasies, but those tragedies are not dumbed down or softened for the audience of children.
For a Disney film.
They're presented very real and heartbreaking.
I will have to check that out.
But overall,
I really enjoyed this. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I don't know that I would say I loved it, and I can't even tell you why I wouldn't say that I loved it, but I really enjoyed it.
Did you find yourself getting emotionally involved more than you would I've heard there's this theory, right, that people who watch movies on planes will cry easier at a movie. Have you heard that?
No, I hadn't.
Because they feel more emotionally vulnerable up in the air, and
I just always feel like I'm being watched. So.
Really? They say movies can bring out different emotions.
That's why I didn't
based
put
on the
porn
altitude.
on. I just felt everybody was watching.
Well, maybe.
But I wouldn't say there's a lot of shocking plot twists, so I guess I was as emotionally invested as I figured I would be dealing with the subject matter. I mean, you're invested and whatnot. I mean, I didn't cry. I wasn't tempted to cry with any revelations or anything, but I mean, you care for the kid and you're invested and whatnot. So I wouldn't say it was any more or less. I know, yeah, watching a movie on an airplane can be a really interesting experience. So interesting theory, though.
I don't really believe in it, but
no.
Whatever. Just fine.
No, I mean, the only reason I wanted to cry during Sing was because I was still watching it. So
yeah, you wouldn't have minded missing the last 4 minutes of that movie.
You should have skipped that earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
Paul, anything else to talk about?
Sure. I recently caught up with a movie that I've been wanting to watch for a long time. It's a 2015 movie called Slow West, starring Michael Fassbender, and it also has Ben Mendelsohn in it. Those are the two big stars. It's got a couple other recognizable faces in it. The movie's about a young Scottish man who's making his way across the United States looking for his long-lost love. It takes place in late 1800s near Colorado, and he is quickly, I hesitate to say befriended, but supported by a kind of gun for hire, which is Michael Fassbender's character. And I really enjoyed this movie. It was a very beautiful movie, a lot of long sweeping landscapes, very slow build, slow burn. I don't think that hurt it. Your guys' description of The Lost City of Z really reminded me of this movie a lot, and where you said it was, a slower pace, but that doesn't hurt the movie. It's got elements of action that are swift and brutal, but I think that's a little more realistic portrayal of likely what happened. Mm-hmm. Great performances all around. Very engaging and smart, dialogue driven. I've seen a lot of modern westerns with like Bone Tomahawk, which obviously that has a little bit more of a horror element to it. This is a little more gritty and grounded, and another modern western that I really, really enjoyed.
Yeah, it's a fairly realistic, well, in terms of our legends of the Old West anyways, it's fairly realistic seeming, and I liked it a lot too. I thought, like you said, I don't think it was too long of a movie. I think it was less than 2 hours, if I remember correctly.
I think it was just over an hour and a half.
Yeah, but it was slower paced, but not in a way that hurt it. That's a good way of saying it. It had a deliberate story that it wanted to tell, and then when it built to the moments of violence, they were not your typical Western shoot 'em up. They were kind of tense, dark scenes of gunfire, and they were scary as opposed to exciting. Michael Fassbender's great in it. It's a very good movie, yeah. And
it won Sundance Film Festival Award, too.
And who directed it?
It was a first-time director. It was John McClane.
The cop from Die Hard.
Yeah. So surprised there's no Christmas element to it.
Excellent. Yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker.
Yep. But yeah, I strongly recommend checking it out. It's one that I had heard very positive things about, which put it on my radar, and I'm really glad I finally had a chance to catch up with it, too.
Came on the Movie Network, I don't know, a year and a half or so ago, or a year ago. And
that's when I saw it.
Sounded interesting. Seemed like there were some good reviews, so I recorded it. And don't regret it at all. It was very good.
I thought it was good. I didn't think it was as good as Bone Tomahawk.
Bone Tomahawk is a better film. But
As far as character-driven westerns, I'd put this up there. For me, for recent ones anyways. But yeah, if there was a push to choose between the two, and I mean, they're so different, I don't know why you would be choosing
They are
between
very
the
different.
two. I'd say I enjoyed Bone Tomahawk a little bit more. This one doesn't bring anything new to the table, so to speak, but if you get the chance to watch it, it's definitely
it's worth a watch. Yeah.
It's a good modern western for sure.
Yeah, and if you like westerns, for sure, you're going to enjoy it. So, rant and a rave.
Absolutely.
Okay. Sing can go sing somewhere else.
Yep. Sing should be sung by somebody else.
Yeah, Monster Calls looks very interesting. I've wanted to see that.
Yeah, I really
And I've heard really good things about it, too.
Yeah,
so.
I quite enjoyed it.
Okay, cool. Darren, what do you got today?
I will start out with a book.
Another book. From Moby Dick? What's this one?
It's also a tale of the sea.
Not Don Quixote.
It's a movie about Captain Ahab in its own way. It is...
Oh, look at that. Oh, my God.
It's a massive coffee table book called Jaws, Memories from Martha's Vineyard. Jaws is one of my 10 favorite movies of all time, easily. I love this film. I've seen every documentary I can get my hands on about it. There's very little about this film I haven't already devoured. So what was great about this book is... It's strictly about the Martha's Vineyard location shooting, and it contains all the stories from the islanders who were involved, the people who helped on the crew, the carpenters, the boat captains, the people who then got involved with the special effects, and many of the actors who were there, like Alex Kintner's mom, and the guy who ended up playing Ben Gardner, who was a big influence on Robert Shaw.
The mother was a non-actor, a local actor?
She was an actress, but she was from Martha's Vineyard and just,
right?
Did local stage work and that kind of stuff.
She did a really good job.
The kids in the movie, same thing. All the kids were locals. Most of the people who are senators or town elders are from the island. And all the photographs in this book, too, are from the people involved. People would bring their cameras to set, and, the big Hollywood production is coming in. And when the 2-month shoot turned into a 4 or 5 month shoot, and they really wanted the Hollywood people to get out of there, you can sense the frustration. People just couldn't wait for this movie to be done. Even Spielberg apparently left
before the final shot.
Yeah, there's his editor, Verna Fields, and I think the cinematographer and 1 or 2 other people, the special effects guy, I can't remember his name now, but they finished off the last 3 or 4 shots that needed to be done in the last couple of days. And I mean, they were insignificant shots, but still,
it's awesome.
Spielberg bailed, and he just couldn't wait to get out of there.
Yeah, Dreyfuss was on a plane with them on the way back to L.A., and Dreyfuss turned and he said, "Steve, I thought we still had some other shots to do." He's like, "We do. They're doing it." It's like, what?
He couldn't believe that he just bailed.
It's incredible how disastrous the shoot was.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a fascinating book to hear. I mean, the kids growing up telling what it was like being on set and shooting this iconic film, and the journalist who worked for the Gazette on the island, and she kept chronicling the production throughout the summer months, and a lot of those news articles are reproduced here. I would like to read a few quotes from, they had the premiere at the island, and this journalist, she ultimately reviewed the film. Edith Blake was her name. Here's a reproduction of...
Just from the local paper?
The Vineyard Gazette, it's
nice.
called. Let me find a few choice quotes. I mean, she says some things like, except for an opening moment when Police Chief Martin Brody stepped out of his East Chop house and was instantly in Gayhead, and Benny Isaacson said, that was a quick trip, because, of course, the interior and the exterior were filmed in different places, and all the islanders would know that. The theater was pin drop still. The fact that the theater was pin drop still is pretty amazing. And yet this review is rife with just the audience just talking and laughing throughout the entire screening. The consensus of the viewers that first night was that the film seemed jerky, with little continuity. Many admitted that this was because they had been busy looking for familiar faces, sights, scenes, and themselves. Everyone agreed that the plot of the first half of the movie didn't meld with the second half, which was gung-ho, let's catch a shark. Disappointing for many were whole scenes which had landed on the proverbial cutting room floor. Yeah, I mean, of course these people remember shooting so many scenes.
Everything.
That's what a movie production is, but you can't call it a bad movie because the shot you were in didn't make it into it. Rick Dreyfuss, who played the oceanographer, had no character written for him and had just clowned his way through.
Wow.
There's a lot of choice quotes.
Did she put out any sort of retraction later?
Okay, this premiere night in Martha's Vineyard was a benefit for the hospital, I think. Actually, Jaws may need a benefit before long because it doesn't seem to be that good a movie. Wow. So this Edith Blake is maybe within a few months of this publication of this was eating a few of her words, but
probably
it's a fascinating.
And this was the finished film, like with special effects and score, and
this was the finished
everything?
film. Yeah.
Wow.
Yikes!
It just shows.
For those of you out there who don't know, Jaws went on to become the most popular movie of all time. That's
yeah. In case you haven't heard, it was a bit of a blockbuster and is immensely respected today as one of the great screen thrills.
What's been like the legacy of the movie with Martha's Vineyard? Do they have like Jaws festivals and stuff? Do they have the Embraced being the place that shot
Not
Jaws?
really. I mean, it definitely draws tourists, and there's a few, meccas for Jaws fans on the island, but they maintain such a kind of low profile on the island that not really for them themselves. It was a unique, crazy summer that employed a lot of people on the island and put a lot of money into the island coffers at a time that the country was in a recession. So they appreciated it and it helped a lot, but it was kind of all back to business after Universal packed up and left. So it left a lasting impression on those who were involved, but they didn't get the Hollywood bug they just kept being Martha's Vineyard Islanders.
Right. They never felt that need to hold Jaws festivals every year.
No, not really. I guess they're kind of their own culture there on Martha's Vineyard. And just to have this come in and intrude is kind of a big disruption in their lives, and they kind of relish the stories and so on. But anyways, fascinating read.
Yeah, it looks like a great book. That one's pretty huge.
Yeah.
It's obviously it contains a lot of
it's a coffee table book.
Too.
There's a lot of photographs in it, a lot of behind-the-scenes photographs that were contributed to the author of the book by the people on the island who, went into their old collections and film rolls and said, well, I took these pictures while I was on set and so on. And so there's some fascinating pictures you've never seen before about Jaws.
Did you learn anything about Jaws that you didn't know before?
Lots, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, for a Jaws fan, hearing it from the Islanders' perspective, there's a ton of stories I've never heard before and things that I thought I knew that were debunked. Everyone always assumes that the stunt woman who plays Chrissy broke a rib when she was being hauled back and forth. Right. And that she says, no, she said, that's a myth. I did, strain my back a little bit, but there was no bones breaking as the stunt coordinators were pulling me back and forth in the slings. Who knew that?
Yeah, it's, I think with all this documentaries, like Jaws has had two big feature-length documentaries recently.
You've seen every interview with Dreyfuss and Spielberg and John Williams.
Telling the same
and
stories.
Zanuck. Right. Exactly. And this is all from the perspective of the people on the island. So it's just the stories you've never heard before. It's pretty fascinating.
Okay. Looks good. Retail price?
It was a gift, so
okay.
I don't know.
Looks pricey.
It's I can't imagine it's less than $60. It was it's a big. Well, it's soft cover anyway, so maybe not as expensive as it could be.
But yeah, if you're a Jaws fan,
it's a must for Jaws fans for sure.
Excellent. Anything else today?
Yeah, I kind of changed what I was going to talk about. I was going to talk about one thing, and then just Paul bringing up Monster Calls. I thought, you know what? I'm going to bring up Tale of Tales, which also has a fantasy element to it, so that's why I thought I'd bring it up as a companion piece. It's from a couple of years ago, or a year or two ago. It's largely an European, Italian production, but it's in English. It's an English film. I mean, John C. Reilly is in it. Toby Jones is in it. The French actor Vincent Cassel. Salma Hayek is in it as well. This movie really divides people. The critics seem to love it. Audiences seem to hate it. I mean, it's pretty much what it reminded me of was unsanitized Grimm's fairy tales. I've recently read the original English translations of the Grimm's fairy tales, and they're awesome. They're awesome. Yeah, they're dark and they're messed up and they're twisted, and oftentimes they make no sense.
They're anti-Disney.
They're very anti-Disney, and that's what this is like. Not only is there no happy ending, but there's almost no ending. The movie just kind of ends, and I think that probably frustrates audiences. There's not a lot of resolution to the characters, and I loved that about it. I found it fascinating. There was 3, 4, 5 sort of different interrelated tales that kind of kept going back and forth between them.
And would you call it straight up horror?
No, it's like Guillermo del Toro. In appearance, it's a lot like Pan's Labyrinth, but not nearly as dark. There's some kind of horrific dark elements, but it's mostly I'll call it an adult fantasy or adult fairy tale. Like the Grimm's fairy tales, to me, seem to be a lot about hubris. A character commits too great an act of hubris, the world will take them down a notch, punish them for their missteps. That seemed to be what this was doing. People kind of had okay, normal lives in a European fantasy setting, but then they got a little too ambitious, wanted to elevate their status in life a little too much, and nasty things tended to happen to them. And no one was really rewarded. People were punished, but no one really got their just desserts. So it's frustrating for audiences in that respect, but gorgeous to look at. Just a great, like I said, it looks like Pan's Labyrinth, so great design to it. I don't know if you're willing to try a different sort of fairy tale that you wouldn't normally like, take a chance on it, but you might be very frustrated by this movie. I'll say that too. I liked it quite a bit, but I'm warning audiences right now, you may not like it.
And where did you come across this movie?
I remember when it opened and I saw the review. It has a very striking...
Recent film?
Yeah, I think it came out just 2015, 2016. Okay. It might have played 2016 in North America, maybe 2015 in Europe. It has a very striking ad campaign, poster campaign artwork. So I remember seeing the posters when it first turned up, when it was opening, and it seemed just very striking. I looked into it, and the reviews were pretty strong, so that it was always on my radar. And then it turned up on the movie network in the last few months, so I recorded it and watched it, and I liked it quite a bit.
Sounds interesting. I think I'd like to check it out.
Yeah, I think even people who didn't like it probably find a lot to like about it, but are left a little unsatisfied at the end. But to me, I kind of enjoyed that the ending was less than satisfying, if that makes sense.
That's cool. I haven't heard a thing about this movie.
Tale of Tales. It's very interesting. And apparently it's based on a book too, or a series of stories or so on. So there is source material for it as well. It's not all original.
I'm intrigued. Very intrigued.
Ron, what do you have for us today?
Well, What do I have? I have a big rave. I caught up with the movie Tony Erdmann. If you remember from my best of list, this was one of the movies I was worried about that I hadn't seen yet that might have made the list, and it could have. It's a terrific film. It was Germany's Oscar entry from last year. It's directed by a woman named Maren Ada, and it stars Sandra Hüller and Peter Szymanczyk. This is basically the story of an estranged father and daughter. The father is Winfried. He's a retired man. He spends his days joking around. He's a bit of a prankster. The first time we see him, he's pretending to be two different people. He's constantly putting on disguises and wigs and fake teeth. Anything to get a laugh from the people around him. He's that kind of character. Doesn't seem to have a serious bone in his whole body. His daughter, on the other hand, is a corporate consultant. She's kind of a mini Gordon Gekko. Mm-hmm. She's the type of person who's hired by these big corporations to show them how to cut costs and increase revenue, which usually means laying off employees. They can then use her report to then justify their terrible actions. So in the middle of all this is when Winfried decides to drop in for a weekend visit and surprise his daughter. So she entertains him for the weekend. They're not really at odds with each other. They just seem to be on different paths in life, and she's way too busy for him, and he can't really understand what his daughter has turned into, this kind of corporate creature. So at the end of the weekend, he departs and says goodbye. Or does he? She doesn't know is that he hasn't left town. In fact, he's been kind of spying on her, and he dresses up in this huge wig and becomes Tony Erdmann in disguise to kind of invade his daughter's life, and tells everybody he is some sort of professional life coach who's hired to show people the meaning of life and how to be happy. But of course, it doesn't work on her. She recognizes her father immediately in his getup, right? But the thing of the movie is she lets it go.
She pacifies him.
Well, she plays along with
him. She doesn't let in that she knows
throughout the rest of the movie, and it's kind of, why is she doing this? And because he could be very destructive to her career. She's at this critical juncture in her career, and he could blow it all. There's a whole other aspect of class warfare and globalization going on as kind of the backdrop of the film. Like, she's very money-oriented, right? And he's all about living life. And although it's a German film, I would say the majority of it takes place in Bucharest, Romania. There's a great backdrop of the economic conditions of what's going on in Europe with globalization. And it kind of shows how imposing all of these Western economic values onto certain countries don't really work too well.
Yeah.
Do you know that Europe's largest mall is in Bucharest?
I do now.
Yeah. It's this great shot when they go there, and there's a skating rink with one person on it and aisles of hundreds of stores with nobody shopping, and it's just capitalism gone mad. One character has this great line that's kind of just a passing line that I found very interesting, where at a party she says, I enjoy being in countries with a middle class. I feel more secure. Mm-hmm. It's kind of the attitude of a lot of the characters in this. They can feel the class warfare around them. That's kind of playing as a nice backdrop to this relationship that they have. I should say how much I enjoyed the performances. Peter Szymanczyk, hope I'm saying his name right, as Winfried. He is terrific in this. At the beginning of the movie, he's kind of appears as kind of a shaggy dog type. He's got, this messy hair and kind of a disheveled appearance. He kind of reminds me of an old French actor, Michel Simon, who played a lot of characters like that. I think if you're looking for like an American parallel, you might think of Nick Nolte. He could be really good in this. Mm-hmm. He's portraying him as kind of a buffoonish guy. He's not. He's really smart, and he knows what's going on around him. He's very aware and acute of things. He's just silly and finds the joys in life. On the other hand, Sandra Hüller is really the lead in this movie. She carries the film, and she's so good in it too. You can tell, as driven as she is, you can tell that there's a lot of love in their relationship and everything, but she's just way too busy for him at this time in her life. Mm-hmm. It's scene after scene of dark comedy and heartbreaking tragedy. Although it's funny, it's never cute. Mm-hmm. It's almost more like the cringeworthy laughs that you get from like Ricky Gervais' stuff, of human frailty. And it's just one of those special foreign films that captures life like American movies don't. Mm-hmm. It's long. It's 2 hours and 42 minutes. Ooh. But never boring and always funny. There's kind of a bizarre sequence at the end involving a lot of nudity that makes more sense the more that you think about it. They're going to be doing an American remake of it. Kristen Wiig is playing the daughter, and the script is good enough to get Jack Nicholson out of retirement.
Oh,
He's
really?
going to be playing Tony Erdmann.
Wow.
So I was kind of thinking that while watching the film, and he's going to knock it out of the park too.
Yeah, hopefully it's a good remake and inspires people to check out the source material.
I wouldn't imagine that Jack would get involved with the movie if they're going to soften it up too much. Mm-hmm. I hope they keep all the rough edges and the bleaker stuff in this. But a terrific film if you want to catch up with one of the better foreign films I saw last year.
I look forward to this.
Tony Erdmann. Okay.
One other film I'll talk very briefly about is film I managed to catch up with on Netflix. It was called The Free State of Jones with Matthew McConaughey.
Yeah, I've heard very mixed things about that.
Yeah, I watched it because I'm a big fan of the director Gary Ross. Normally his stuff is, from Pleasantville to Seabiscuit. He's a great director, but this one just kind of missed the mark for me.
Basic story, Matthew McConaughey plays a blacksmith for the Confederate Army who finds the conditions intolerable in war, doesn't like the way that the South is handling the war, and defects. He goes back home to find out that the Confederate Army has been taxing his town people and the citizens of Ohio, where he's from, almost to death, taking 90% of their rations for the army to keep them fed and basically leaving the townspeople to starve. So McConaughey doesn't like what's going on, and he forms a militia with other ex-soldiers and free slaves around the area, and they head into the swamplands there and kind of fortify themselves as kind of a little mini army, who eventually act kind of like a Robin Hood kind of thing, kind of taking from the army and giving to the poor, kind of a ragtag bunch until eventually the Confederate Army has to deal with them and send in the troops. So that's the basic story. There's not much really of a supporting cast in this at all. Mahershala Ali is in the film too, completely wasted. He's given very little to do. And for its 2.5-hour running time, it really kind of drags on too.
You know what it reminded me of was that movie Defiance from a few years ago?
Yeah.
With Daniel Craig hiding the Jews in the forest, and this movie is just as bad as that one, I think. It really doesn't work at all. The black-white relationship is given such short shrift, it's not even funny. Yeah.
This is almost like the opposite of The Lost City of Zed in many ways as a historical film. It completely Hollywoodizes everything, moment by moment, beat by beat. It all just seems very formulaic. I can't recommend this movie.
There's another movie that came out last year called The Birth of a Nation, but Nate Parker's Rebellion. I kind of want to see that too.
Yeah, that one did sound better.
Yeah, I hope it's better than this one was. That's for sure. Okay, moving on.
My next rave, I want to do something that we've never done before on the show, but maybe we should. Normally, we talk about a new show that we're interested in, but we
Star
never.
Trek. We talk Star Trek.
We do, but we never really talk about a show after it's finished and say what we thought of it as a whole. One example I could think of is The Night Of. You were telling me how much you liked it, and
no, we really only brought that up when I think you and Ivan were halfway through it or something.
Right, but I mean, it'd be nice to catch up on some of these things after
we
we're all done complaining. So as for today, the show that I was raving about, Feud, wrapped up. That was the show about Betty Davis and Joan Crawford's tempestuous relationship. Did you guys watch any episodes?
I've not seen anything.
Haven't had a chance to.
It ended great. 8 episodes was perfect for the show. When I said it was all about the making of Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, that's only the first few episodes. It goes beyond that into the troubled production of Hush Hush Sweet Charlotte, all the way until Joan's infamous last role in the monster movie Trog.
Yes, for a troglodyte.
Guys, you ever seen Trog?
I've not seen Trog.
I watched it just because I've never seen the movie and I owned it, so I put it on, and it's gloriously bad. She is really working way too hard for a movie like this, and you got to give it to Joan Crawford. She was a consummate professional all the way through, even working with a man-ape. But overall, the show was just fantastic. A perfect encapsulation of Hollywood. I hope Ivan was right that they do more of these involving maybe different people and different feuds in the show business, but just thought it was a great show. The last episode was as good as the first one, and that's kind of all you're looking for in a series that you really enjoy.
Yeah, I hope I catch it someday. It's my list of TV shows I need to catch up on is ever growing, unfortunately.
Yeah, maybe just, like I said, 8 episodes. So, they're probably going to marathon it on FX sometime, and you can just record them all and do a quick binge. Yeah, I highly recommend Feud. And while I'm on the subject, Big Little Lies ended 2 weeks ago, and the finale to that show was fantastic, too. I thought it all wrapped up very well.
I actually just listened to another podcast that was talking about that show, and they were all very impressed with how that wrapped up, too.
Like what I was saying before about there was a crime that was kind of talked about and very vague, and I was almost like, are they pacing all this right for me at the very last episode to not know any more than I did in the first one? Yeah. It was perfect how they did it.
And I've heard Nicole Kidman just knocks it out of the park.
I think all of them are really good. She's probably got the maybe showiest performance playing the battered wife. She's very good in it, but I wouldn't take that away from anybody in the cast.
Yeah.
So to recap, that was one big rave for the German film Toni Erdmann. I think you can probably skip out on The Free State of Jones unless you're a real history buff or a Matthew McConaughey fan. And two big raves on the TV front with Feud and Big Little Lies. And, of course, the enthusiastic rave for the Lost City of Zed. Okay, that's all I've got today. But Darren, you said that you saw the movie Silence.
I did. I caught up with Silence.
Well, I have to know what you thought of it.
It was great. It was very good. I maybe put it my 4th slot in my 10 best list of the year. Probably put it just behind, if I can remember my list. I had Civil War, Arrival, Manchester, and then, Silence would be number 4.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much right where I had it.
It's pretty close to where I think you had it. Yeah.
Super powerful.
It's very powerful, yeah. I was expecting it to be even more brutal and tough to watch than it was. Not that...
It doesn't need to be anymore.
No, it doesn't need to be. It's exactly what it
he could have played that up.
Yeah.
But no, I wouldn't have wanted to see much more brutality.
No, it's tough to watch, and we know what people like this went through, and that's not really what it's about. It's about the character journey and what do you do to protect your faith or stand up for your faith. And it's such a metaphor it can be a metaphor for your political beliefs or your scientific beliefs or just about anything. And
sure,
it frustrated my wife because she knows things like this happened. She knows these are historical truths, but she's so frustrated when someone doesn't just say, my life is important enough that I can turn my back on this and say, sure, I'll save myself if I do this or say that. Done. But if someone's faith is that important to them, then...
Which is why I think I might screw up his name. The character of Karichi.
Oh, yeah.
It was so interesting because he does exactly that. Every time he's put to the test, he folds completely. Every time
he'll be the first.
Right, he turtles out immediately. But he's alive.
Yeah.
And then he refines his faith and he begs for forgiveness. But he does know that his life is the most important thing. More important than his faith.
Yeah. And you can't argue with that, really.
But in some ways, there's that scene with the silver coins, right?
Yeah.
So it's almost like, they're almost portraying him as a Judas-type character, right? But he's not, really. I always think the character of Judas as a villain is ridiculous anyways, because you can't have the story of Jesus Christ without Judas. Judas plays a very essential part of that story.
Yeah.
So he's instrumental in making Jesus what he was, but I digress.
Yeah. No, that's relevant, I think. Yeah. You need that character Andrew Garfield's character is a very Jesus-like character in this film, and I think the parallels are deliberate.
So well acted. Andrew Garfield as the lead is very good in it.
Yeah, and not just Andrew Garfield, but Liam Neeson is fantastic in it, and
for the smaller role that he's in,
smaller role.
That final scene with that sit down between them is.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's fully converted at that point?
No.
You don't think? You think he's playing the same game?
I'd say he's playing the game that Andrew Garfield is playing. He's too smart of a guy not to.
Yeah.
And what a great performance from the actor who played Karichi or whatever his name was. He was the Japanese finds for the actors. Man, I don't know who the casting director was that found these people, but
all amazing,
fantastic. The Inquisitor. Oh man, what an actor!
So gentle, and he's almost, he would play like the Yoda in like another movie.
Oh, yeah.
That kind of wise, old, kind mentor. And
if he's the villain in the movie, man, is he a reasonable man.
Sure.
He is.
But he never sees himself as a villain, that's for sure.
No,
he is doing
sure. And
the Emperor's work.
Exactly. And he is, you can't argue with a lot of his reasoning. He makes a lot of sense.
And those are the best villains, the ones that don't come across as maniacal and that not over the top, that there actually is a hint of reason to them, and it makes it scary because it's more realistic.
I've heard on other podcasts and different reviews that many people take his side. Have said, why, if they just did what he wanted, there wouldn't be any problem. All he wants them is to leave, right?
Yeah.
Which is easy for the missionaries to do. It's not so easy for the converted to do.
So here's a question, and it might be a silly question because I haven't seen the movie, but you were talking about the values of the two main characters and how Andrew Garfield's character holds his faith above his life and that Karichi character holds his life above his faith. Is his portrayal as a coward because he basically does, as you said, turtles and he refines his faith, but he abandons his faith to save his life? Is he depicted as a bit of a coward because of that?
For sure. Absolutely. I think he's seen as a coward from those around him.
Yeah, the people around him certainly do.
I never thought of him as a coward.
No, I think he's actually a sympathetic character to the audience. I mean, how many people have been in that position where their life was at stake or their faith? What would you do exactly? So he doesn't come across as cowardly for the audience, but his fellow Japanese Christians have a different point of view.
Nor do his fellow citizens who sacrifice themselves come across as naive or stupid.
No,
either.
That's true too.
Right? They come
So it doesn't
across
lead you one way or another.
No. There's no easy answers in this. That's for sure.
And that's smart. And I, as a film goer, I prefer that, where how you decide to where your allegiances fall depends on your point of view. I prefer that rather than a heavy hand of, well, this guy's clearly a coward because he didn't believe enough.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it's...
It's as rich and deep
way
as
smarter than
film
that.
as you could want on the subject of faith. From three atheists.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's the thing. If any of us atheists can watch this movie and be enraptured by this tale of faith, it says a lot about the filmmaking involved.
Absolutely, right? But it's the humanity that's involved. And,
exactly. And it is a metaphor for so many other things beyond faith. Mm-hmm. It's a great film. Yeah, that's Scorsese is one of his best of his last 10 films, I guess. I'd say maybe the best of the new millennium, maybe. Yeah,
I would say you can definitely tell it's a more personal film, I think, than The Departed or The Aviator or Shutter Island.
Yeah, definitely. Scorsese fans, don't miss it.
It's too bad it had such a short stay in the theater that you weren't able to catch it in the theater.
Yeah, like Lost City of Z, this would have looked spectacular on the big screen.
Amazing, yeah.
I can't remember the name of the cinematographer for this one too, but man, does he capture the same. I mean, I think this was shot in Macau, not in Japan, but anyways, the look of the film is wonderful. And it's, to use a term you just used recently, heavy-handed. I mean, Scorsese has worked with people like Robert Richardson before, who is a cinematographer you might call heavy-handed. I mean, I love him. I love his work, but man, is he a flashy cinematographer. And the work in this film is not flashy. It's just spectacular looking and amazing in its capturing of detail.
So good.
I look forward to watching it.
Good movie.
Yeah. It's a masterpiece. All right, we'll be back next time with our review of Marvel Studios' latest extravaganza, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. Starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, Dave Bautista, not to mention Kurt Russell and Sylvester Stallone.
That's true.
They're both in it?
Yeah.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
It's the Tango and Cash reunion. So I've heard that they don't share any scenes together, but oh well.
Still.
Okay. Until then, please subscribe and give us a rating on our iTunes account. You can also like and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And if you're interested, you can comment and search for past reviews on our website at whyweseemovies@libsyn.com. Until then, take care.
Later.
Sayonara.
Ciao.
So